Now, while everyone was paying attention on the Ukraine and a lot of people from my country were paying attention at the elections, there was an event that was like blink and you miss it. I guess this one you can actually do call a special military operation because almost overnight, Syria fell to the rebels. Happened with lightning speed, and it's mostly due to the fact that the Syrian military seems to not have desire to fight. They were pretty much like fleeing in the face of the rebels, so there weren't that many engagements. There were a couple, but nothing significant. And it seems that the allies from Syria, which were pretty much holding the Bashar al-Assad regime together, they did try, at least in the beginning, to offer some support. I think like Russia did a couple of bombing runs. But when they saw that the Syrian army is unwilling to fight, they decided to abandon the region altogether. So that happened in the course of a week. And now the question is like, what is the fallout? What's going to happen? And this is from today in the Daily Mail. They're talking about the history of Bashar al-Assad, right? Because this was also something that I was curious. Usually when you have this level of coup, it's like, well, what happens with the leader? Like, did he manage to flee? Did he take his money with him, right? Like, these are all important questions. And for a while, people didn't know. There were rumors that he was captured. There were rumors that he was dead because apparently the plane that he was in fell off the radar for a couple of minutes. But no, apparently he's in Moscow. So yesterday he was taking pictures with Putin, showing to the world that he's alive and he's now seeking political refuge. And my question was, okay, but what is he going to do now? Like, what are we going to expect from Dr. Assad 5 years in the future? Because obviously he's not going to end up working as the janitor at some high school. And I looked at what other world leaders do when they're into exile. And most of them, if they manage to get enough money with them from the country that they ran away from, then they can use that money in order to fund themselves, usually up until the rest of their days, and they also have like some money for their children. I don't know if Assad actually managed to take the bags of money like in the video game Tropico after he fled, but assuming he didn't, like, what jobs would he do? And there are other world leaders that did actually fled their nation states without the bags of money. And usually they start writing books, they go and hold speeches at various universities. In the worst case scenario, the nation state that gives them asylum, they also provide them with a monthly fee and an apartment, right? Because it's also about the prestige of the nation state that they seek refuge, to show that they do have the resources and the means to provide for asylum seekers, right? So it's a matter of PR. But in the case of Assad, I actually didn't have to wonder for long what he's going to do, because he said himself, he's going to become an eye doctor. And yes, it is Dr. Assad, apparently. I genuinely didn't know about this. I didn't know much about the history of Syria, simply because whenever it came up in the news, they would just say, like, brutal dictator Assad and not go into many details, don't really explain anything besides, well, he is a bad person that hopefully in the future he's going to fall and the rule of law is going to be upheld in Syria. Like, that's usually the vibe that most articles talked about it. But apparently now, many newspapers are actually writing his biography, and turns out that he wasn't actually in line for the throne. It was his brother, which passed away. And so the mantle of leadership was trusted upon him, if I understood the articles correctly. And he always wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to be an eye doctor, and this is what he's going to do now. He's probably giving the heart attack of many Russian officials, because this would be a huge security risk. Again, it's all about PR, right? Like, if you, Russia, are offering asylum, especially to someone that used to be a political leader, you are responsible for their safety. So it would destroy national prestige if something bad happened to him. And especially due to the nature of the situation he finds himself in, and wanting to be an eye doctor, in other words, get to see patients, like random people off the street that get to visit him. Yeah, I can imagine that the people in charge of his security are not going to have a good time. Of course, it may also be that he's not going to provide medical services for everyone. It may be like a short list of VIPs. But then again, even so, like, why would VIPs want to go to him? I mean, take into account that a person who doesn't practice medicine for more than a couple of decades may also be lagging behind with modern technology. And it's also like the dexterity and the skill that you get by practicing. And so, I don't know how he's going to pull it off. Not gonna lie though, it would be interesting to have him as an eye doctor. Like, imagine the conversations you can have. Like, imagine the questions you could ask. Chances are, like, people who actually go visit him in the beginning will be met by journalists who will want to get the story. It's like, how was it like? Like, what did he say? It's also possible that he will just refuse to talk about politics and just focus on the medical. Still, like, very interesting, though. Like, very interesting. I haven't seen this happen before. Again, I looked at other world leaders that fled into exile, and most of them just stay secluded in a place where no one knows, and they just write a book, and they come out of hiding every now and then in order to talk about an interview, make some money by appearing on the news. While apparently he wants to be an eye doctor. In other words, see patients. The news will travel fast. I mean, it will spread like wildfire. Everyone will know where his little office is. And it's going to be a nightmare for the people that are paid to guarantee his safety. Now, with that out of the way, what is happening in Europe? Like, what is the response from European nations regarding the fallout in Syria? And, for once, I can sympathize with them because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't type of deal. So, a lot of the rebels that took over the regime seem to be mercenaries. And obviously, like, some of them may be from Europe. Some of them may want to go to Europe after this. Some of them may not just be mercenaries, but they may have been recruited into the rebel organization. And so you have like people that were itching for a fight, didn't get one, but were still victorious. Like, usually in human nature, if you know about if you lived in the hood and you know about how people are, when someone is itching for a fight and doesn't find one, they will usually try to find one elsewhere because they're already pumped up, like they're already hyped up. And many of these people, especially after the victory they got, may genuinely feel like this is, God smiling upon them. Like this was preordained. I think like the name of one of these rebel groups were like the Liberators of Levant or something. It's like, how should I put it in terms that YouTube doesn't get upset? Enough to raise certain security concerns. I mean, Europe already experienced a lot of excitement the last time something kicked off in Syria, and I can see why nation states may be concerned. So you have Germany, you have Austria, you have Britain, and I think like other countries simply saying that they are going to stop asylum procedures for people from Syria. But as I said before, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because on the other side of the conversation, there are people pointing out, it's like the refugees that are very likely to come from Syria now may be religious minorities. They may be Christians, they may be Yazidi, they may be Muslims of various smaller denominations, who may not see eye to eye with the rebels, and they may feel a little bit politically persecuted. Again, I gotta say it in terms that YouTube would not get upset, but like I'm pretty sure that most people know what I'm talking about, right? Like, if you read the news a little bit and you kind of see the situation in the Middle East, you probably know, right? So those are the individuals that will probably seek refuge into Europe, and now Europe is deciding, no, right? So again, damn if you do, damn if you don't. The interesting thing is that Europe can deny asylum seekers. I was told that it's impossible. Like, I genuinely thought that there is absolutely no way to turn people around. Like, I thought that during the refugee crisis, it's unavoidable. It's like a storm. It's like a calamity. Especially in Germany, there was a party, right? The AfD. And they were heavily criticized for being against migration. And they were constantly being lectured about human rights and how you can't just stop migration. And, right? But now it seems that there is a way. They found a way. You know, I'm glad. I'm glad that they managed to figure out a procedure through which this can be stopped. The politicians should be applauded. Their methods should be copied and experimented and found out, like, how did they work? Why couldn't they have been done up till now? Like, what was keeping them from employing them? Huh? For how long can they keep them? Like, maybe it's like a thing that runs out of mana after a while, right? So it's got like a cooldown or something. I don't know. It's interesting to know that they exist at least, right? Like a nation state can actually say, no, we're not going to take more asylum seekers from this place. And they can even differentiate between asylum seekers, right? So, like, they can say, if you're from Somalia, you can come in, but if you're from Syria, you can stay out. So, like, all of a sudden, they're now having the technology and the possibility of differentiating between various groups of people. Like, this is fascinating. So, yeah, this is what happened a couple of days later. The European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, said that the cruel dictatorship has collapsed. The historic change in the region offered opportunities, but not without risk. Europe is ready to support safeguarding national unity and rebuilding a Syrian state that protects all minorities. I wonder what she thinks of the German and Austrian decisions not to allow said minorities to seek asylum. Is someone going to ask her? I don't know. No, seriously, like, I'm genuinely curious, trying to figure out what her position on this issue is. We are engaging with European and regional leaders and monitoring developments. It's interesting. Right. Well, I guess maybe in a couple of months. I mean, it takes a while, right, to monitor and make an assessment. We're going to hear more from her. I'm actually curious. Like, what is the European Union going to do? And how exactly is the European Union going to protect minorities half across the world? The European Union doesn't have an army. We're in NATO. But even if it did have, I wouldn't advocate for deploying it in Syria. Heaven forbid. The only thing we have is regulations. Like, we got a lot of regulations. So I guess we can send regulations to the rebels. And regulate the shape of the bananas and the way that the sand has to be set in front of the house and at which hour they can clean the house and help them join the fight against global warming and teach them that they're not allowed to start bonfires, and right, like maybe that's how we can help minorities, because generally I don't know, but I'll probably find out like in a couple of months. I am interested in finding out. I'm not saying we can't. It's just that it's interesting if the borders get shut down, so like people fleeing persecution cannot find a way in Europe. A decision that, again, I kind of understand the reasoning behind it. I'm not going to assume malice. I'm just going to be like, okay. But like, how else? Like, what is the other way that we're going to help these minorities? Interesting. Again, maybe we're going to find out in a couple of months. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.